Super Bowl week rolls on here in Philadelphia. We're talking fears. We're overconfident going into the Super Bowl so far. Seems we're really, really confident, and we're not like that in Philly. So I put out a thread. We're going to talk. What are your fears on how this Super Bowl can go wrong? Trending in the AM. It starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms, but do me that favor and hit the like, the subscribe button over there on the DSM Media YouTube page. Turn the notifications on. That way, you don't miss a second of the action. It's also the best place to get interactive with the show, to drop your comments, your thoughts, your concerns as we get set for Super Bowl Sunday. One day closer. If you're scared, go get a dog. I'll just end the show right there because of Mark's great comment. We're talking fears today. So make sure you get your comments in. It's the best place to do it on YouTube. We do take them on Facebook as well. If you're watching on Twitter, we cannot see your comments. So you got to go over to one of the other social media platforms to get your comments heard. Fears. We're waiting for my man Jason. Again, computer glitches. Somebody buy that man a new laptop, please. Something that's got a how-to manual right next to it for him, please. I am Phil Stoffel, your host at Bearded Knowledge. You see these great threads on my Twitter page at Bearded Knowledge, so make sure you're following me there. Got a jam-packed week still here on Trending in the AM. It's not ending. More guests coming up, more shows coming up. So much happening. Mark's man Matisse might be playing his last game as a Sixer tonight. But we're sticking to the Eagles, and we're sticking to the Super Bowl today. And fears. This feels different. This team is loose and focused and fun. But Mark, and I appreciate you jumping in here this morning, you got to have some kind of fear in the back of your head. There's got to be some kind of worry and doubt. Look, we've talked about it a few times. This isn't some no team. This is not the 49ers with Brock Purdy. This is Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Freddie, longest week ever. Absolutely agree. Like, I want it over with just so that I want Sunday here. But not to lie, it's been a blast talking the Eagles and the Super Bowl every single day on this show. It really has. But you got to have some fears. You got to have some doubt. And even if it's not fear or doubt, if you don't want to admit to fears because, Mark got a dog and Oscar protects him at night and makes sure he doesn't have nightmares, there's got to be keys that could go wrong. If you don't want to admit to fear, say keys that could go wrong to cause the Eagles not to lose. I thought of fears, and I was thinking of my favorite stupid sports movie, The Replacements. Sugar Shane Falco, there he is, right there. Cost me a ton at the Sugar Bowl. And they lose a game, and they talk in one of the practices about fears. And Shane Falco's, fear was the domino effect, basically, the quicksand effect. One thing goes wrong, then the next, and the next, and the next, and it causes you to fail. And that's what got me thinking on this thread. So I've got a thread on Twitter, and I'm going to go over some of these threads, some of these fears. And, of course, my man Scotty, his biggest concern is the slow starts. And Kansas City's defense is not as good as San Francisco's, but they're a good defense. And to be fair, the Eagles' offense outside of that Smitty non-catch, did not play well early in that game. So is the slow start a fear for anybody? Contain Patrick Mahomes by keeping him off the field. We need to be eating the clock, drives that get 7. Absolutely agree. And that's actually one of the fears and things that we're going to get to in a minute. Steichen gets pass happy rather than pounding the hell out of them. Yes. Agree with that, Anthony. 100%. The fear, though, of the slow start, whether it's because they get pass happy or whether it's because they have a 3-and-out and Patrick Mahomes eats up a lot of clock. Rookie quarterbacks or cornerbacks may be eaten alive. Well, this is one of my fears that I teased yesterday, and I probably should have started the show with my fear. And my man, Shane Half from the Painted Lines and Bleeding Green, Chalk Talk, he put something out there yesterday or a couple days ago that Jalen Hurts is 3 for 10 on deep passes since his shoulder injury. One of those 3 completions was the non-catch by Devontae Smith, which is a catch now. And that's fine. I'm not trying to say it's not a catch because it's in the record books as a catch. Perfectly fine with that. So, talking about the rookie cornerbacks against Smith and Brown, talking about Shane Steichen, being pass happy, my fear is that Jalen Hurts' arm is more hurt than we realize. Jalen Hurts' arm can't throw if you watch his throwing motion, if you watch his mechanics on those deep balls since the injury, go back and watch all 10 deep passes. And I'm sure there's somewhere out there that you can see each one in one video clip. He is not letting it rip. It's a lot of just kind of flick of the wrist and trying to place the ball, which means he doesn't have as much of range of motion as he lets on. He might not be able to cock it back and follow through on those throws. All these fears that we're talking about, controlling Patrick Mahomes and the clock, Steichen's pass happiness, these rookie corners of the Chiefs. Well, if Jalen Hurts can't throw that ball and can't throw it well or accurately, we might be in trouble. All it takes is 1 3-and-out on the opening drive. Patrick Mahomes then to get the ball and do what Patrick Mahomes does best, march his team down the field for a touchdown. That's a fear for me. We saw it in that Saints game. I know Jalen Hurts wasn't playing in that Saints game. But but the Saints get the ball after we go 3-and-out. And they, what was it, like a 7-8 minute drive? They just marched right 13 plays, 15 plays, whatever's right down the field. And that just takes all. You give up one of those long drives that kills the momentum of a team. You're all hyped and ready to roll. It's Super Bowl 57. But your defense just gives up a 15-play drive to Patrick Mahomes, dinking and dunking to all his different weapons, Panchero and McKinnon and Kelsey. And is Juju even a weapon anymore? I know he's bashing cheesesteaks, and Philly, that's just Juju trying to get his name back in the media's spotlight. But my fear is that Jalen Hurts' arm, and I think that the game plan, yes, the offense is a run-first offense. And there's a good one right there. Lane tweaks that. I don't know if he can tweak it anymore. I mean, that groin is held together by Scotch tape right now. Gorilla Glue refused to pay me, so I'm not going to promote them anymore. They're held together by Scotch tape. And I don't know if he can hurt it anymore. I don't know if you noticed it, Anthony, but when I was watching the opening night festivities and they had the whole bunch of the team members and captains walking up on stage for their face-off with the Chiefs, you can see a little gimp in Lane's step. I wouldn't have had Lane walking up those stairs to get up onto that stage. Protect that groin as much and the pain level as much as possible. But I don't think that unless something massive happens, I don't fear Lane having to come out of this game. Lane's going to tough it out 100%. But you think about it, it should be a run-happy offense. But this Chiefs defense can be had in the air. So if Shane Steichen gets pass happy at first, but Jalen Hurts' arm is not capable of making those deeper throws, that's how those quick 3-and-outs happen. That's how the first 2 or 3 drives come up short. You need to score early and often against this Chiefs team. Put the pressure on Mahomes' ankle. Tougher than a $50 or $2 steak. I thought it said $52 steak there for a second. But yeah, he is. He is one tough SOB. And there he is, Mr. using a computer what was the old computer from 1947 called, Did you finally reboot it there? You get all the boxes on the walls reset?
Oh my God, I'm getting ready to throw through a wall. I can't stay. I don't get it. I don't know. I guess it's time to upgrade. Like, it's only like 2 years old. Like, I don't understand like why every so often it just like I go to turn it on and it's like frozen or.
Well, let's get back to the point of the show, and we're talking fears. All right, and I'm going over my biggest fear to start here, and that's the fact that I teased it at the end of the show yesterday, Jason. 3 for 10, deep passes. Everybody's chiming in here. Anthony, Mark, Freddie. That we should be running the ball, and we've got the Chiefs have weak cornerbacks, and Smith and Brown should eat, and Steichen might get too pass happy. Well, all these things go right into my biggest fear. That Hurts 3 of 10. One of those 3 completions is the Devontae Smith non-catch. So realistically speaking, he's 2 of 10 on deep balls since his injury. And if you really look at those passes, he's not really throwing the football. He's not really full windup. If you really look at his mechanics, they're tweaked a little bit to handle that. What if Jalen Hurts' shoulder can't do what he needs to do, which is be able to attack these cornerbacks and spread the ball around? You're not going to win this game by running the ball 40 times a game. The Chiefs are just too good offensively. If you fall down 2 touchdowns, you need Hurts to be able to throw. My biggest fear is Hurts' shoulder.
I mean, it's a legitimate fear. I think it kind of. I think the Hurts shoulder issue goes hand in hand with the slow starts because that's my biggest fear. My biggest concern is that we'll have a slow start, and then what will happen is, and I know this team, we've talked about over and over and over again how Jalen doesn't get rattled, but it is the Super Bowl, and my fear is that I don't necessarily think Jalen will panic, but I think that Nick Sirianni may panic because, we're in the Super Bowl. There's all this pressure. And then all of a sudden, what happens if like the Chiefs get off to a 14-0 lead? Then you're going to have to pass the ball. And that goes hand in hand with what you're talking about with the issues with the shoulder and not being able to throw the deep ball. So I think you're right.
Wouldn't surprise you, win or lose. Say we win, the Super Bowl parade's Thursday, whatever it would be next week, and then literally Sunday, he's already under the knife for shoulder surgery. Like that to me would not surprise me. That's how serious I think this injury is at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I listen, I agree with you. I think I look at this game plan though, and I know you said that we can't beat the Chiefs by running the ball 40 times. I don't necessarily think you have to run the ball 40 times, but I think the X factor in this game is going to be Jalen's legs. I think he will not hesitate to, I went back and watched the national championship game with Alabama, and there was a couple runs that he had in that game that were like insane. Like where he was in traffic, and I mean that one run comes to mind. I think it was like a 35-yard run, and he runs like up the middle, but like through like 3 people. It was like almost like he was not going to be stopped, and that's kind of where, it kind of trumps all the fears that I had. Like, listen, I know this show is talking about fear, but I also,
as Mark says, if you got fear, go get a dog.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think there's many legitimate fears, but I think the number one thing that I've been saying, and I've been saying it, the only way that the Eagles lose this game is if they beat themselves. So it's either going to be a combination of turning the ball over, or it's going to be that they get behind by a big enough score and they can't keep up with Mahomes. Right. Like Jalen can't match Mahomes.
So here's the thing. So we're talking about fear and the pass happy. They should run the ball, but will they? The injury. My man Shane Half. We love him on the show, and he's been great to us. Put out a tweet yesterday. The Chiefs ran a light box. So I don't know if that a light box means 4 or 5 guys up only, 47% of the time in the regular season, which was a lot. In the playoffs now, in the few games of the playoffs now that they've played too, they've ran a light box 75% of the time. And Steve Spagnuolo, Andy Reid, we talk about how stubborn Jonathan Gannon is or Shane Steichen is from time to time. Well, Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, I mean, they've been around the block for a long time. Talk about stubborn people. If they think the light box is the way to go, it doesn't matter if the Eagles want to run the ball 40 times. They're going to let them run the ball 40 times and try to find another way to stop them. So maybe the stubbornness of the vets of Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Romeo Crennel, Bellamy, maybe that is their biggest weakness that could be an advantage for us.
Yeah, because that would feed right into the fact that
run the ball.
Yeah, and when you have, we've seen Kenneth Gainwell kind of evolve, towards the end of this year, and he's, shown an ability to kind of take over a game. So when you have that now and you combine that with Miles Sanders, and you still have to keep them honest. Like, that's the thing. Like, in the San Francisco game, I heard a lot of people saying, oh, Jalen's not throwing the ball deep. He threw the ball deep. He just didn't connect.
Right.
So,
and see, that's where my fear comes in. Because if you look at those non-connections, it wasn't because of great defense or a bad route or a dropped pass. It was because the passes were off.
Well, yeah, I would say most of them were overthrown,
exactly.
which means
that you're trying to place it versus throwing it.
But I still think that if you attempt the deep balls, if you don't take that out of your arsenal, even if you don't connect, it keeps the defense honest. And then that allows you to kind of take that run game to the next level. Because a lot of times, most teams in the league set up the pass with the run. Mm-hmm. But the Eagles sometimes do the opposite. The Eagles set up the run a lot of the time by using the pass early. Mm-hmm. You saw it in San Francisco game. Like, the Eagles didn't just run the ball early. They tried to run, but they weren't really getting home. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until after Jalen took those few deep passes, like the one to Devonta Smith, that did well. It connected, but he dropped it. We all know that now. And then the one
in the record books, it's a catch. That's all that matters.
Exactly. In the record book, it counts. So, but it wasn't until after that where he kind of started going deep a couple times. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you see the Eagles' running game start to have success, and they do that a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, we as fans, like, a lot of times early in games, we'd get frustrated because we'd be like, why are they not running the ball? Mm-hmm. And then by end of game, they had 200 yards rushing. Like, that's happened a lot this mm-hmm. year. So I don't think it's necessarily a negative if he can't connect on those deep passes. However, you're going to have to be able to do that at a certain point because, like I said, you're going against Pat Mahomes, who has shown the propensity to be, I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's the greatest of all time right now. Playing. Tom Brady retired, so he's the greatest right now.
Okay, so here's another fear, and you're talking about Patrick Mahomes and how great he is. Obviously, the ankle is a thing, but so we got on this thread I have on Twitter, we got Eagle Len at Len845. And he had two keys, that were concerns. It's the solid run game to control the clock, to keep Mahomes on the sideline. If you're confident you can do that, and we're talking about that. But getting pressure on Mahomes' ankle and rattling Mahomes' confidence. And then he put at the end of this, the Chiefs are never out of a game, pedal to the metal. And that, I think, is a great fear there because we've talked about it countless times on this show this year. The propensity for the Eagles to get out to a lead, take their foot off the pedal, and let teams back into games. And that is definitely a fear because, let's be honest, I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Mahomes can go and drive that team down the field and run 5 plays in 3 seconds. I don't know how he does it, who he pays off on clock management, but there's plenty of times that clock don't start on time. But Mahomes does, all joking aside, have the ability. We say we don't want the Eagles to fall behind 14-0. Well, if the Chiefs fall behind 14-0, 17-0, they're not out of the game. So the fear is that this coaching staff of the Eagles has let the pressure off a few times. And that could be, you take your foot off, you take the pressure off, the Chiefs start gaining some momentum, it's hard to put the pedal back down. It's hard to shift back into drive. And the Eagles could let a lead slip away and then let the Chiefs win this one because of the lack of aggressiveness in the third quarter and so on.
Which I agree with, and I think
it's a great fear to have.
It's an excellent point. But I will say, if there is a team out there that can combat the Pat Mahomes factor, it's the Eagles, because they put pressure on the quarterback. Mm-hmm. They're going to put pressure on Mahomes. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Kansas City has a good offensive line. They're not great. They're nowhere near the Eagles level offensive line. Mm-hmm. Our defensive line, I still don't think it's being talked about enough how great of a season they've had. I mean, to be able to have 70 sacks in a season is it's almost unheard of. I mean,
we're up to 70. We're two. I think I saw on NFL Network yesterday, 2 more sacks in the Super Bowl puts us at the all-time number counting playoff games. That's how great.
Obviously,
counting the playoffs and regular season, we're 2 away from the all-time record.
Yeah. Now, I would still beg to differ, because we played more games in the regular season. I think the Bears.
Every stat's getting broken because of more games in the sport. So
point heard. But what I'm getting at is that I do not see a world in where the Eagles do not put any pressure on Mahomes and he just throws for 500. I don't see it happening. Like, mm-hmm. I listen, Mahomes is going to get his, but I do not see – the Eagles are just too good. They're too well coached. You know, we have to continue to say, you know what, Jonathan Gannon proved us wrong, because, listen, at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. I mean, the Eagles' defense was very good, and the Eagles' defense is what realistically got us to where we're at in the playoffs, because our offense didn't light the world on fire in either of those games, in the Giants or 49ers game. Mm-hmm. The 49ers were the best opponent we had faced up until that point all year. We all agreed with that. The script didn't go the way it thought. We a lot of us thought, I know you thought it was going to be the Eagles were losing at the end of the game and they would come back. Right. None of us, the script didn't go anywhere near what any of us thought.
Right.
Nobody knew that Brock Purdy.
Nobody knew that Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson were going to get hurt.
I mean, so it's hard for me to analyze that game,
right,
like, in reality, because you can't really say what if, because nobody knows what would have happened. But what I can say is that our offense didn't light the world on fire, but our defense won the game. Our defense is what – now, yes, they went up against quarterback 3, but we still put the quarterback on the ground. I mean, there's a world in where the Eagles, sack Mahomes and it hurts. And listen, I'm not out to say I want somebody to get hurt, but that's there. The reality is that Pat Mahomes is still hurt. You cannot just miraculously fully.
If we're going to talk about Hurts' injury, we got to address, Mahomes' injury too. I get that point. Freddie saying, I would hope the Eagles don't ease off. The real validation is if we blow the Chiefs out. But what have you seen, Freddie, that says that they won't ease off? Because that's what they do very, very often. KC has never seen a defense like this year, and I think that's fair. And are you going to force your defense to play against their offense, or are you going to make your defense force their offense to adjust? And that's actually a great point, Mark, because the next fear, my man Mike Sale, at Mike Sale 1 on Twitter, he said, it's a difficult road if Mahomes completes 80% of his passes. And Gannon has to, know that. And that is the kind of the Patrick Mahomes offense this year compared. They don't have Tyreek Hill this year. They don't have that deep threat. Marcel Hardman is now on IR. This offense of the Chiefs is a lot of dinking and dunking and letting their guys get in open space, letting Travis Kelce get into open space and then do whatever he does with the yak after the catch. How can you get pressure on Mahomes when he's dinking and dunking, throwing that ball in less than 3 seconds every snap? That's on Gannon to adjust, to force them to do something different. And whether you have confidence or not in that, it is a fear. If Mahomes gets comfortable and is just doing what he does, 3-yard pass here, 4-yard pass there, 5-yard pass there. They get in a rhythm. They get confidence going. All of a sudden, that Eagles defense are on their heels a little bit.
What's the saying? Pull out all the stops. That's what I look for in a Super Bowl. In a Super Bowl game, when it's do or die, it's the end. He's going to have to blitz. Like, I know he's stubborn, but you're going to have to get to a point. If Pat Mahomes is doing that, you're going to have to change. You're going to have to adjust. So, you're right.
How do we adjust? I mean, we have obviously two of the best quarterbacks in football, Darius Slay and James Bradbury. They have no offensive weapons, really, or offensive wide receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, he's never lived up to the hype that he had in Pittsburgh. Hardman's out. Scantlin, I mean, he was a third or fourth option in Green Bay, and he's one of their best options. It really comes down to stopping their running backs like McKinnon and Pincheiro and Kelsey in the passing game, not the wide receivers. I mean, do you get cute and fancy and not put Bradbury or Slay on their wide receivers and let somebody else cover them? Or do you trust your linebackers and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to stop these running backs and Travis Kelsey? Because you get Kelsey on one of those games where he goes for 10, it wouldn't be a bold statement to say that Travis Kelsey ends up with 10 catches, 50 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he's that damn good. So you got to find a way to negate that. I mean, we've seen Jared McKinnon, multiple times this year have 2 touchdowns in a game because he gets moving in the offense. He catches the ball on the flat, blows by everybody. How do you trust what you've been doing all year, which is not blitz, trust your front four to get after the quarterback, apply pressure, or do you mix it up a little bit?
See, I'm not as like gung-ho about the fact that the Chiefs wide receivers are like dog shit. Is basically what a lot of people are saying that. We're inferring that. The problem with the Chiefs wide receivers are, yes, they're not sexy. They're not guys that are they're not AJ Brown.
They're not.
But I will tell you, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, as much like, as people say, oh, well, he was a nobody. The guy he's a boomer bust type guy. Like, he's a guy that could go off for 200 yards, like, because he's a deep threat. And that's the problem. Like, I'm not saying, like, that we should be scared, but you can't take guys like that lightly, because that's the problem. When you start doing that, that's when a guy goes off.
Maybe that's a fear. I'm taking it as a fear, maybe. I'm taking him and the wide receivers too casually. I mean, you got Kadarius Toney. Is he hurt still, or is he back? I know he got hurt.
Toney is back. The only guy that won't be playing will be McCole Hardman. I think he's actually done.
I'm pretty sure he's officially done there on that one. So
I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, like I said, he's a wide receiver he's not a sexy name either, but he's still a guy that, he has a name value. He's a guy that, listen, Mahomes threw for 5,200 yards, and Travis Kelsey only had 1,200 of them. So their wide receivers might not be great, but he spreads the ball around. So that could be actually a blessing or a curse in disguise for the Eagles, because if you do start taking these guys lightly and he does throw for 80% and he just starts dinking and dunking, you're in trouble.
I mean, that's another fear here. King Dro at King Dro 12 put on this thread. Mahomes picking apart that soft zone coverage that we tend to play. And if you're not, if you're playing a soft zone coverage and you're playing against a quarterback that takes long 7-step drops and there's time for your front 4 or 5 to eat, that's fine. But when you're playing against a guy like Mahomes that's going to take 2 steps back and dink it off really fast, not waste time, that doesn't give your defensive front much time to get to Mahomes. And him throwing 80%, I mean, it's very possible.
It's a legitimate concern.
And Anthony checking in here saying Jared McKinnon definitely worries him. And he worries me. He's the type of running back that in the past, not this year so much, but no one gave us much trouble this year. But he's the type of running back in the past that has given the Eagles defense problems. Shiesty out of the backfield. Look, I don't want to bring up any negatives about any players, but I have been harsh on Kazir White this year, that he hasn't really lived up to the hype that they built in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. Someone like Kazir White needs to up his game big time, or Jared McKinnon's gonna crush us.
Well, their running back's going to be 3 deep now because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be back. So and listen,
I'm not really too concerned about him this week
he didn't have
because
a good season, but
he lost his job. He got hurt. Yeah,
Pacheco is the guy that concerns me. I get the Jerick McKinnon because he catches the ball out of the backfield, but Pacheco, he's been a solid piece for them down the stretch, like a guy that actually has sneaky speed. And he's the kind of runner that he's going to run straight ahead. Like he's actually the kind of runner we've had trouble with this season. If you look back at the games when we got gashed early in the year, he's that kind of running back. So I agree, Phil. I think I love this show because I think we're like we say we're I think we're confident and rightfully so. But you have to look at the things that are, that could go wrong. Like the negative.
And I think that's what the point is. We're just looking at what could look. It's not like this is not week 14 or week 12 or week 10 where we still got, there is no tomorrow. You know what I mean? This is it. It's this game and then next season starts. So things can go wrong. And a lot of the comments on my thread were about us being overconfident. And that if the players are feeling the way we're feeling, that maybe that they're not taking, it's not that they're not going to take the game seriously. Obviously they will. But if they're as overconfident as we are, maybe something falls through the cracks. But then also at the bottom, the last comment on this thread is a guy, Kenneth Fisher. And he says, he lives in KC. And he says, trust me, they think it's a given. He's not a KC fan. He's an Eagles fan living in KC. The Chiefs fan base, supposedly, is just as overconfident in this game as we are as Eagles fans. So maybe the overconfidence cancels out with the other team because the other team, I'm sure Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are looking like, we're going to let Jalen Hurts in his second year beat us. Nick Sirianni, the guy that talks about flower planting roots and stuff like that in the ground. I'm sure there's a lot of overconfidence coming from their side as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think an under the radar concern for me specifically is that Pat Mahomes in 14 playoff games has never been an underdog. And in this game, he is the underdog. And
they are the underdog,
we talk about how Jalen Hurts has a chip on his shoulder. Listen, Pat Mahomes has every right to have a chip on his shoulder because there's been many people that have tried to say, oh, no, Josh Allen's better, Joe Burrow, like a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And Pat Mahomes, for what it's worth, since he's been in the league, he's pretty much been in the playoffs every single year, in the AFC Championship every single year, in the Super Bowl 2 times. Like the guy, he's amazing. So he can use that kind of stuff as motivation. We say how like our team does it, but you got to look at our team's not the only team. The Chiefs on the other side can have the same kind of motivation when they're being told, you guys are not the favorites because, that team across the way has better talent.
That's why when I did the Sunday night live in the morning show, right after we won the game, and I did it with Mark, and I'm like, I expected the Eagles to be underdogs, betting-wise. I did. And they were for like 1 second, then it swayed to the Eagles. Because I did say that although the Eagles are as a team, and we'll break down position by position on Friday as we do our final predictions for the Super Bowl, but, as a whole team, the Eagles are better. But they still have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, 2 of the best ever at their specific, and Travis Kelce, 2 players that might go down as the best quarterback and best tight end ever when all is said and done, and a coach that's one of the top 5 or 10 of all time. So I still expected the Chiefs to be favorite. And you bringing up Patrick Mahomes as the underdog. Look, Patrick Mahomes wants to be considered the greatest of all time. He's the best in the game right now. He's already borderline top 5, top 10 all time right now. Brady's gone. He is the flag bearer of the NFL now, Patrick Mahomes. So he doesn't want to be the underdog. And even if he is the underdog, you cannot take away. It doesn't matter how many bad teams did Tom Brady lead to the playoffs or the Super Bowl. Yeah, he had some really great teams, but he had some bad teams too. When you have greatness playing across from you, you better respect it because greatness we talk about Jalen Hurts elevating people around him. Well, Patrick Mahomes elevates everybody around him as well. So you take Patrick Mahomes off this Chiefs team and put, I don't know, name a random Derek Carr on this Chiefs team. Are the Chiefs in the Super Bowl right now?
No.
You take Patrick Mahomes off this Chiefs team, put Dak Prescott on this team. Are they in the Super Bowl right now?
No.
You take Patrick Mahomes off this team, you put, I don't know, let's say Jimmy Garoppolo on this team. Are they in the Super Bowl right now? No. We could go on and on with these mid-level quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes is the reason why this Chiefs team is in the Super Bowl. And
just like Jalen Hurts is the reason the Eagles are in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
It kind of goes hand in hand. So
I think that's a very valid thing that Patrick Mahomes has to be taken into account here.
Yeah,
more than he is.
If you want to, if someone was going to ask, like, what is your biggest fear going up in this game? And we just did a whole thread, and we've talked about a lot of, and there's been a lot of great, thank you to the commenters.
I mean there's more on here. I mean, some of them are repetitive, so I haven't said every single one. Mahomes picking apart zone coverage, AJ Brown's status. That's one that we haven't adjusted. Is AJ Brown was AJ Brown frustrated or is he hurt? If AJ Brown's not at 100%, maybe it's not Jalen Hurts' shoulder. Maybe AJ Brown just couldn't get to those balls because he's not 100%. I think it's more Hurts' shoulder. Yeah, but I think he's more just frustrated.
I don't think he's frustrated to the point where he's like a cancer to the team. He's frustrated because he wants the ball, because that's what wide receiver want. They want the ball. They want to be able to put up the big game and say, hey, I helped the team. So I can't fault the guy for that.
Right.
I do, you said yesterday, I know there was those quick hitters, and you said you feel like AJ Brown, this could be his game.
Mm-hmm.
I know I had said Devonta Smith, but I don't see a world in where 3 games in a row AJ Brown is held like off the stat sheet. And when I say off the stat sheet, I mean like he doesn't have a big game.
Right.
Well, I think it's almost a guarantee that AJ Brown, like I'm not like you, I don't bet. But if I was a betting man, I would probably be looking at a prop with an AJ Brown touchdown. Maybe not the first touchdown, because I think that'll be Travis Kelce. But I think AJ Brown will score in this game.
I got to ask you. I know everybody's going to say Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, TJ Edwards, some kind of bracket coverage. I got a question for you. I've watched a lot of Chiefs games, mainly because my father-in-law is a big Chiefs fan. I got a couple friends that are from Kansas City originally that are big Chiefs fans. So I do, and I unlike Mark, I do have respect for Andy Reid. I love watching Patrick Mahomes play. How the hell is Travis Kelce open on every single? I mean, the guy is like 7'7", 390 pounds. I mean, he's bigger than Andre the Giant, and defenses lose him. I mean, it blows
route runner.
He absolutely is. They were breaking him down on NFL Live yesterday, and they showed one of his routes that he ran. I don't remember which playoff game it was. And literally, there were 3 guys on that play designed to cover him. He made one cut, and he made it so perfectly, he ended up wide open with nobody 5-10 yards near him. Travis Kelce might be one of the best route runners in the history of the game.
I honestly, I think he is. I think right now, in my opinion, this is
wide receivers, tight ends, running backs.
Travis Kelce and Devontae Adams are the 2 best route runners in football. Like, and that's why it's not a coincidence. Like, they're big guys. They're guys that you wouldn't think would be like, okay, why is he getting 100 catches a year?
Yeah. It's not like he's running a 4.240 and blowing by everybody.
That's why Devonta Smith coming out, when he was drafted, people were surprised. Like, oh, wow. Devonta Smith, he's a nice dude. He's an elite route runner. Like, the routes that he runs they were comparing it to Jerry Rice, coming out of college. Like, that's why Jerry Rice was great. Jerry Rice
wasn't the fastest.
Blazing speed. Yeah. He was just a guy that could get open. And that, to me, is the most important, reason why a lot of wide receivers don't make it in the NFL. Guys like Jalen Reagor, they were drafted high because, they have speed. Dude, you need a lot more than speed to make it in the NFL. And Travis Kelce.
Jalen Reagor is the perfect example of that one, for sure, 100%. All right, so I got a couple more fun fears here. All right, Carlos Rivera, Navas, I think is how you say his name. Rivera Navas on Twitter. All right, and he brings up this is what concerns him. Head referee for the Super Bowl is Carl Sheffers.
Oh, no.
I don't know. Eagles are 6-8 in games refereed by Sheffers, while the Chiefs are 16-7 in games ref by him.
Oh.
He also was the ref of that New Orleans Saints loss in the playoffs in 2018 when Alshon Jeffries dropped that wide open pass on what would have been the game-winning drive. Do you buy into the refs have bias in games? Or is it just that the NFL scripted? Like one former running back talked a lot about this week on a podcast that it was predetermined Eagles, Chiefs 18, 20 weeks ago, and everybody knew it. Obviously, that's a joke. But do you buy into the referee bias or referee stats that, certain refs tend to lean one way or the other when they call games?
I mean, it is concerning because, I think it has a little bit of credence. But, like, at the end of the day, I still think, the play has to happen on the field. But I think that having those kind of situations where you have refs that, you look at the data and it shows, obviously the Eagles haven't had a lot of success. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the calls go the Chiefs' way. Let's put it that way.
I mean, it kind of, to me, it's one of those things where Nick Sirianni's just got to drill home. I mean, if you think about 6-8 with the Eagles, a lot of those games were with different regimes. His 16-7 record with the Chiefs, a lot of them are Mahomes. So he just tends to, I don't want to say, he just tends to give the Chiefs a little bit more leeway than the Eagles, more so. So that's just a talking point for Nick Sirianni to be like, yeah, look, this guy gives a lot of breathing room to the Chiefs. That means we have to be that much better, that much more on point. None of these, was it early season, mid-season, where our offensive line was getting false start and holding calls nonstop and the ineligible man downfield calls nonstop. We couldn't get Hochalua. Yeah, is he even still a ref still? I don't even know.
And Hockley?
Yeah, Hockley, yeah. I don't know. I buy into it as a talking point to the team to make sure that we're on point and not letting mistakes get away from us.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no place for sloppiness. This is the Super Bowl. You cannot have bad penalties. You cannot have mistakes. You see, this is the one area, like when you look at Jalen Hurts versus Pat Mahomes, like Pat Mahomes is probably better on every level as far as like arm strength and talent and all that kind of stuff. They're both great leaders. I think we both agree. I mean, we rave about Jalen, but Pat Mahomes is right there. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that I will say is different between the two of them, Pat Mahomes makes more mistakes than Jalen Hurts.
Absolutely.
Pat Mahomes is kind of sometimes a gunslinger. So there's an opportunity where if you can kind of get in his face and rattle him, he will throw an interception.
Absolutely.
Jalen Hurts, if he continues to play the way his script has went all year, he's not going to turn the ball over. Like, he's very, very good with keeping the ball, being patient, and he adds that element, that run, dude, that run on fourth down, the 4th and 1s where quarterback sneaks, that is a lethal play.
Absolutely.
Like, we have our back.
Teams are literally writing the NFL offices to change the rules. That's how lethal that play is. When somebody changes a sports rule, that is when they're at their peak right there for some reason.
We have that in our back pocket. And I remember in 2017, like, you could go back to that Super Bowl, all the big plays, like the Brandon Graham strip sack, obviously, was probably the biggest play in the game. But I look at that 4th down catch that Zach Ertz made on that drive where they score the touchdown. They don't score that touchdown. The Brandon Graham strip sack doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So 4th and 1s in a Super Bowl, and we have the best play for a 4th and 1.
So 3rd and 4th downs. I mean, I saw somebody post a stat and I didn't think of it, but now that you're bringing it up, the Chiefs, I think, are the best or the second best team in the NFL on 3rd down and converting 3rd downs. And I always say, you got to get off the field on 3rd down. So can our defense get off the field on 3rd down? That's a new fear that I just came up with just now. You let Mahomes keep converting these 3rd downs. Kelsey on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. All he's got to do is run a quick out pattern or crossing pattern, find the soft spot in the zone coverage. There's a first down, drive extended. Defense gets tired. That is something right there. But on the flip side, where they're the best on 3rd down, we're the best on 4th down. So those 3rd and 4th down plays are going to be crucial. And it's very important for Nick Sirianni, I think, not to get gun shy. What I mean is, like, he has no problem week 16 going for it on 4th and 1, or week 14 going for it on 4th and 2. Even if it would put his defense up against the wall, does he get gun shy on that because it's the Super Bowl? And I hope the answer to that question is no.
I don't think so, because he has the perfect template. All he has to do is go back to 2017 and watch Doug Peterson in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't get any more. Calling Philly, the Philly special, is as aggressive as you can get in a Super Bowl. And he did it, and it worked. So I think that's a great point. Just see what brought the success in 18, and that's how you win the Super Bowl.
So with that being said, and the fact that, I kind of said it's kind of pull out all the stops type game, do you think there will be a trick play on either side, Eagles or Chiefs?
It's funny you say that.
It's a legit question.
I think it is, because he was asked during opening night media availability. Someone asked him, they did Philly the last time they were in the special Super Bowl. Do you got something special lined up? And he gave the prototypical we'll see kind of answer, dictate, the game will dictate. But he had a little smirk when he said that. Like, there's the grin on his face said that they have something special planned. Will the script of the game dictate that they can use it? Who knows? But I guarantee you, he's got a trick up his sleeve. So we've seen late in the season.
A.J. Brown touchdown pass.
Maybe this is where they've been saving my dream Jordan Mailata rushing touchdown. Maybe this is what they've been saving it for. I saw somebody say that could they get a sports book like DraftKings to put a prop out there for 2 players to each score a touchdown in this game, and you can't find it anywhere, that Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce both catch touchdown passes in this game. Could that be the trick? You get Jason Kelce to one-up his brother and score a touchdown in the game?
That would be insane.
Look, you don't even need to throw the ball to him. Could you imagine what would be going through Andy Reid's head if the Eagles come out on 4th and 2 on the goal line, all of a sudden Cam Jurgens is under center and Jason Kelce is lined up on the end as an eligible receiver? That's Andy Reid burning a timeout right there. I mean,
I saw someone tweeted out this week about Kelce being the best offensive lineman at running back, and Kelce said, "Make it happen."
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine if Travis Kelce doesn't score a touchdown, but Jason Kelce does?
Yeah, that would be
the ultimate trick play right there. Ultimate trick play. One other fear, another fun one, and a couple people brought it up. Eagles had the right to choose their jersey first before the Chiefs. And I'm sure you've seen this posted a million times on social media. You haven't seen this? The team wearing the white jersey has won 83% of the Super Bowls, and the Eagles chose green instead of white. It's a little fun little conversation here. But the 83% is 83%. The team in the light jersey has won 83% of the Super Bowls. Eagles are going midnight green on Sunday.
But the Eagles have won as being one of the teams of the 17%. So against the Patriots, who wore the white jersey.
I'm just throwing it out there. Can they go 2-0 wearing the dark jerseys? I don't know.
I don't believe in that bullshit.
No, you don't believe in that, then?
Aaron posted it on my page, and he got a lot of Eagles fans up in arms about it. So,
well, he's just a bitter Dolphins fan because he has no quarterback in mind. He thought Tua was an MVP quarterback. He's just bitter. That's all it is to it. All right, let me roll through this here. So one final fear, another Chiefs fan, commented on it that their biggest fear is Hassan Reddick making Mahomes run for his life. And I think we've covered that a few times. If Patrick Mahomes is running for his life, it's definitely going to be a big factor. I'm trying to pull up the rest of this thread here, see if I missed anybody's comments, the running game, Mahomes. You talked about the Andy Reid
Reid.
coming off the bye. He's a stellar guy. I think that's a great stat, but I think it's a little negated in the Super Bowl because both teams are kind of coming off a bye week to an extent. But I do think that Andy Reid's experience factor, I don't know if I want to say it's a fear, but it's a check mark on the Chiefs side versus the Eagles because honestly, let's think about this Eagles coaching staff. Stoutland's been here for a while, but there's a lot of youth on this coaching staff. A lot of young, inexperienced coaches. And can the moment be too big? It doesn't seem like it. But I think that aspect of Andy Reid outweighs the bye week part of it.
I agree. I think the other stat that I showed, obviously Andy Reid was, I forget, 20-something 4.
27-4. It's a pretty sick stat. His record coming after 2 weeks off is 2-3.
Yeah, 2-3, which obviously, he lost the Super Bowl in 2004, and he lost the Super Bowl in 18? Mm-hmm. Or no, 20. 2020 they lost. They won it in 18.
Right.
But yeah, I think. Listen, Andy Reid, the experience factor comes in, but I still can't ever forget. And it still reeks its ugly head. I see it even in regular season games. I see it in playoff games with Andy Reid. The clock management. He has not been able to get over that.
We're going to find out firsthand on Sunday if he's gotten over it at all.
It's going to be fun, dude.
It is. You know what? I couldn't have hoped for a better team to go up against because you know what? There's no excuse. The Eagles win this game. You can't question this team. They're going up against greats, some of the greats of all time. And just the fact that it's Andy Reid, who spent so many years here in Philadelphia, just makes it that much more exciting, I guess is the term I want to say. That we're going up against. We have a chance to beat Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. He can win Philadelphia a Super Bowl finally by letting us beat him.
And then when it's said and done, you will have beaten Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, Tom Brady, and Pat Mahomes. Like, that's a pretty freaking great resume. Like, if you ask me. Like,
yeah, not too shabby at all.
I mean, shit.
All right, so we got 2 weeks left, or two weeks. God, I hope there's not 2 weeks left till the Super Bowl. I need it here now. 2 days left of the show this week. So we got more coverage tomorrow of this, obviously. And, Friday we'll be making our final predictions for the Super Bowl and how we really, truly feel it plays out. Real quick, before we wrap this show up, last night in the NBA, LeBron James passes Kareem, becomes the all-time leading scorer. And in a losing effort, whatever. The point isn't that. My boys over at Ref the District put out a poll this morning on their Twitter page, and it said, who is the greatest youth phenom to live up to the hype? So guys they put Tiger Woods. He was a phenom. He was on Johnny Carson at 4 years old swinging a golf club. LeBron James, he made it famous to televise on ESPN high school basketball games. Who else was on their poll here? Bryce Harper. I mean, wasn't he 19 when he got called up to the bigs with the Nationals? Sidney Crosby got called up to the Penguins at 19, I believe it was. They did not put her on here, but I think Serena Williams is valid in that young phenom that lived up to the hype. Most of the answers are going either LeBron or Tiger. Who is the bigger successful phenom to live up to the hype? Or if you got a different name that you want to add to this list?
I mean, I would say on that list it's Tiger, but I think Michael Jordan belongs in that conversation.
Was he in that conversation, though, when he was 16, 15 years old? Was he? I mean, you weren't and I weren't really paying attention to basketball. I don't know.
I watched the documentary.
Okay.
Yeah. If you never saw it yet.
Which one?
That's one that you definitely need to see.
What, the last
documentary on Jordan?
The 8-episode thing?
Yeah, it was. I think it's.
I watched some of it. I haven't watched it all yet. So.
The Last Dance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watch that.
Okay, so LeBron, obviously not as great as Michael Jordan. I don't think. I mean, you'll get some people that'll say it for sure, but I think he just needs a little credit given to him. I mean,
I
he's
think
a
Tiger
phenom.
Woods, though. I
Yeah,
think. Listen, I don't know golf, but the only reason I know golf is Tiger Woods. Like he was
right.
the biggest. He was the biggest face of everything, and you're right. It was at a young age. I mean, when he came on
He
the scene,
literally, we talked about, people changing the NFL because of Jalen Hurts' run. I mean, literally, Tiger Woods changed the game of golf. I saw a video from one of his first wins in 2000. He had to make a miraculous shot, made a huge, I think it was 7 shots back, which in golf world, being 7 shots back on the final day of a tournament, it's massive. And it's unheard of to make that kind of a comeback. He comes back and wins. And there's a video of him. He's like 20, 21 years old at this point, and they're presenting him his check for $720,000 for winning that tournament. Which 720 grand to me and you right now is a lot of money. In 2000, that's even more money. But nowadays, that same tournament first place prize is like $4, $5, $6 million. This week's event has a $20 million prize pool. That event he won in 2000 had like a $2 million prize pool. That is what Tiger Woods did to the game of golf. Tiger Woods changed the way every single golf course on tour had to get redesigned because of Tiger Woods. Someone like Rory McIlroy wouldn't have played golf if it wasn't for Tiger Woods. The way the game changed because of Tiger Woods, not only was he a young phenom at 4 years old on Johnny Carson, not only did he live up to the hype, but he revolutionized the sport on top of dominating the sport. And I think that's why he's the greatest phenom over LeBron. But let's not take anything away from LeBron. What LeBron did last night by becoming the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, I mean, to be able to score that many points in the NBA, it just, you have to be healthy and at the peak of your game for such a long time. LeBron has avoided injuries most of his career. He's always been playing. We talk about Joel Embiid missing games and time and load management. There was none of that with LeBron. And he's been able to stay at the peak of his game literally since he was in high school till now. He's 38 years old now.
Don't you think it's actually a little bit of added coolness that he was able to beat Kareem, who played for the Lakers? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that to me in itself is like, it probably was his childhood dream. I mean, I don't know LeBron like that, and I don't follow him, but I wouldn't be surprised.
We all love to hate on LeBron. I get it. You know what I mean? But I still think that it's a tip of the cap that he was able. Some people thought at one point that the Kareem record was never going to be broken.
I was just going to say, do you think it's also it speaks to the testament and the volumes of how underrated Kareem is? Like for him to have that record for that long, and his name is not ever. I mean, it's mentioned, but it's not mentioned when you hear who's the GOAT. It's always the argument is LeBron or Jordan. Right. But like Kareem, like he was pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was trying to look it up real quick. If who else is active on this all-time list? Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest of all time. I mean, he's 5,000 points behind. I'm trying to think. Kevin Durant is 12,000 points behind LeBron now. Whew. I don't know if that's enough to catch up. Going down this list, I thought maybe, James Harden's at 20. James Harden is 14,000 plus behind him. He's not going to be around long enough. I really thought Steph Curry's name would have been up here somewhere, but it's not. I mean, there's a chance that LeBron's record now goes 30 years, 50 years before it's ever broken. Because it's so hard in this day and age to be on the court 80 games a year,
How long did Kareem's record stand? How many years was it?
Well, Kareem stopped playing in the early 80s, I guess, late 70s. I mean, Karl Malone came really close. He was like 1,400 points behind. And still, think about it. 1,400 points behind was really close. But 1,400 divided by 25 points a game, he was still.
Karl Malone, wasn't he called the mailman?
Yes, that's correct. You just showed how little basketball knowledge you have there by having to ask that. Yes. But still, you think about it, 20 points a game, you need a lot of games to get that 1,400 points. And Karl Malone was the closest. So, yeah, I mean, Dirk Nowitzki, he was close, but not close. Michael Jordan is 6,000 points behind him. That's how hard Kareem's record was to break. So I just wanted to make sure at the end of the show we gave LeBron his props. Love him or hate him, he's the second greatest basketball player of all time and one of the greatest phenoms of all time. So a little tip of the cap to him there.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely deserves it. I mean, listen, like he's still playing at a high level too.
Yeah.
At his age. It's like a Tom Brady in basketball. It really is.
It really is.
So,
all right, so we're going to wrap up the show here. A little programming note. Tomorrow's show will be pre-recorded. It's going to be pre-recorded tonight, and you're going to want to not miss it. We got Mark joining me, but we also got my boys Jeff and Peanut from Birds Beer and BS, my old boys over there. They're joining us as well to talk Eagles, of course. What else would we be talking about? I think it's going to be an exciting show. I don't know what's going to be said. When you got Peanut with a live mic and Spazzy Jeff with a live mic, you never know what's going to be said. And of course, there's Mark who just hates Andy Reid. So we'll see how this goes. But you're not going to want to miss tomorrow's episode. Again, it'll be pre-recorded, but I will check all comments that are dropped. I will respond to them all. So make sure comments, thoughts, anything you've got, you put them in the comment section. I will respond, get back to you. Make sure you like and subscribe. Turn notifications on the DSM Media YouTube page. We'd greatly appreciate it. For Jason Voorhees, I am Phil Stifel. We are, hold on, what's today? Wednesday? So Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
4 days.
4 days. 4 days away from Super Bowl Sunday. So let's go Birds.
Go Birds.